All right, good morning, everybody. I'm Phelan Wyrick with Office of Justice Programs. I want to begin with a note of gratitude and respect for the pioneers and the pioneering efforts in this line of work. And that includes a long list of many individuals, including some who are here, and certainly many efforts, including certainly the work of the Campbell Collaboration and the work of the Blueprints Group. If crimesolutions.gov was launched in summer of 2011, and really if we've been able to do anything innovative, it's largely because we've been able to adopt the solutions and ideas that that others have come up with to overcome the challenges in this work. So I'm very grateful for that. And like any sort of relationship with a mentor, a mentor is a person you go to seek advice, and then you don't always take it, right? So I'm also patting myself here and trying to build goodwill, because there's some things we've done under Crime Solutions that, where we departed from some of the previous efforts, and we tried to go forward with Crime Solutions as a way to address some of the challenges that we were having out of the Office of Justice Programs. And our position in the U.S. government is largely to support states, locals, and tribes in their efforts to address a range of issues: criminal justice, juvenile justice, and crime victim services as well. And so the example that Anthony gave of the call from, whether it be the mayor's office or the governor's office or the legislature or what have you, we get all that across the 50 states, the territories, the tribes, as well as U.S. Congress. And the question of, what should we do is one that we don't simply not answer. We provide an answer one way or another, whether we have evidence, whether we have ideas or not. So when we think about, when we think about addressing this issue, when we think about addressing violence, we have to recognize that these solutions are carried out at the local levels, and that there are many, many, many practices and programs that are in effect across these fields every day, and tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of practitioners out there who are doing this work day in, day out. Now, whether we, from the social science world, have information to bring to them, whether we provide something to help them with their work or not, does not change the fact that they're going to continue to do this work. They're going to continue to see crime victims. They're going to continue to work with juvenile offenders and high-risk youth, and can continue their work in the courts and in law enforcement. So one of our big priorities for crimesolutions.gov was access to evidence. Okay, we wanted to make it possible for folks to access information about the social science research that's been done, particularly in this area of what we call causal evidence, that question of the cause and effect relationship between an intervention, program, practice, and its intended outcome. We want to make that kind of evidence more accessible to the users out there, recognizing that not all of them are well equipped for it, recognizing that bad decisions are going to be made, poor evidence will be applied in ways that perhaps it should not, but also recognizing that this has to be a piece of what we think of really as an evidence-based movement. I don't think this is something that 5 years from now people are going to decide, we were really going down a dead end there. This whole social science thing is kind of a mistake. I don't think that's going to happen. I think there's a greater push for information, and there's many, many different forces at play that are moving this evidence-based movement. So we have to recognize that whether you're talking about putting together a list of programs like this, whether you're talking about a website development, whether you're talking about funding programs with evidence, whether you're talking about getting out there at the local level and trying to implement them, there's many, many non-scientific judgments, non-scientific factors at play involved in any of that work. Okay? Many judgment calls that are simply made. So we recognize that the way this movement's going to play out in the field, it's not going to be simply turn over all your judgment, experience, and expertise and look just to the science. It's not giving up your discretion and handing it off to the university down the street. Okay? Our constituents would never go for that. So we have to present a different narrative for how this works. And so what we talk about is integrating evidence into practice, integrating it into decision making. It doesn't replace judgment. It doesn't replace your experience. It doesn't replace your expertise. But you'd better understand what the evidence base is in the work that you're doing. And you better recognize that the evidence base varies dramatically across these different topic areas. So that was some of our thinking behind developing crimesolutions.gov. I'm going to talk about the website, and I'm going to take a little different tack here because I'm really going to talk a lot about the website. The website. You can get a lot of information about our methods, and you can talk. We can sit down and talk about how we've, rated threats to internal validity and the characteristics. I will talk a little bit about the domains that we rate and how we do the process. But the website itself is important because if people aren't able to access that information, then it's us frequently talking to ourselves. Okay, so we wanted to make a credible online resource to inform practitioners and policymakers about what works, again, in these three fields: criminal justice, juvenile justice, and crime victim services. Ahead of our work, we saw, and what we see in general across these fields, is that the evidence base for juvenile justice is a stronger evidence base. It's not as strong in the others, but we needed to find something that would address all these areas. Who are our users? Mayors, police chiefs. Down at the bottom of the list, you'll see academics and researchers. My apologies, everybody. But all the research is already written for you. It's already put together in your framework. It's already presented in ways that you can easily access. All these other folks don't have access to it, so that was our priority. We simplified. So the piece that Patrick was just talking about, people in our organization did contribute to that. They came up with 7 evidence effectiveness levels, that sort of thing. Again, for the practitioner, we're trying to simplify. We looked at saying promising, effective, and no effects. No effects came up a little earlier today. When you're in the back of the room and your boss misspeaks to a whole group, you're like, yeah, I hope it doesn't come up again. So I just wanted to be clear. We do have a no effects category. No effects refers to programs that are either, with very strong evidence, that they are either a null effect or a negative effect. When you get into these programs that are rated as no effects, they all have program profiles. I'll show them to you in a minute. If it's a no effects program that is actually a negative effect, a backfire, whatever you want to call it, we have a big warning sign inside the program profile. This program has caused harm. One of the categories you don't see here is the insufficient evidence. And we do have a category like that. We just don't create program profiles on them. That would be a ton of work, an almost inexhaustible list. Okay? Right? Right? The vast majority of programs out there have never been evaluated. The vast majority of programs that are going on right now in practices are never been evaluated. And of those that have been evaluated, most have only been evaluated once. Okay? Is that information at all useful to people out in the field? We think it is. We think it can be. It could be misused, yes, but we think it can also be useful to people, particularly where your alternative is nothing. Okay? You either have access to information about single evaluation programs or you have nothing from social science, nothing to be said. We think that's something that we wanted to address. So we've got currently over 240 program profiles in crimesolutions.gov. You can drill down. I'll show you the program profile in just a minute. It's got summary information on the program description, the outcomes, the study methodology, cost, where we have it, implementation information, and additional references and citations. It's a website. We're interested in people being able to access the information. For example, there's more than 25 ways from the front page, the home page of the website, to a program profile in 2 clicks. Okay? Those kind of things is not what we talk about normally around here. But it has to do with people actually being willing to spend a few minutes on the site. We can draw them in. So they can search by keyword, just like a Google. They can browse by topic. They can do an advanced search and say, I want to look at programs that serve this age range, that deal with these kind of populations in an urban setting, etc. This is the home page. We did testing on it. People like home pages that are pretty, that have pretty colors. That helps them spend a little more time there. And if they spend a little more time there, they might just absorb a little more of your information. Okay? This is the one click from the home page. This is browsing in by topic. Law enforcement is this particular topic. You get to a summary table. It provides you information about some of the programs. You'll see the ratings. I should mention the icons. So we have these 3 icons, and then there's actually 6 because one of them looks a little bit like a fan of cards. That represents a program with multiple studies. Okay, so there's different ways you can look at the information presented in summary form here. You find a program on here you'd like to learn more about. You click on it. Here's your program profile. The next couple of screens I'm going to show you are essentially scrolling down on this page. Picked one, Operation Ceasefire. It's a well-known program. It's got multiple studies. It's rated as effective here. And this is your program description. Talks about your program theory, your target population, your components. On your right-hand side, you've got a snapshot. It's got some information that you can also get about it. Down below, you see these gray bars that are horizontal on the page, and essentially those are expandable links. You click on that, that expands, and you provide it has your information about evaluation outcomes, evaluation methodology, cost, implementation information. The idea is that each of these program profiles is probably a couple of pages of text. And I was talking to a group of U.S. attorneys about this, and we were sort of discussing the merits of trying to reference something like this and making decisions about how to address violence. And the U.S. attorney said, you know, I don't have time to sit here and read these pages of information. And I said, I understand, sir. I said, but if you're about to invest tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars into this work, somebody ought to do that kind of reading, right? It's not going to take you that long. I mean, and this is what we've been telling practitioners. The breadth of programs that are addressed under here, you know, if you do work anywhere in the justice field, you may have some specialty. Throw the keyword in to the search term, see what programs pop up, and just read them. Just read about what are the programs that seem to be promising and effective in your area to get an idea of what those programs start to look like. Now, I know this does not sit well with purists, okay? I get it. I mean, when you've got good evidence, when you have the programs with really excellent evidence, you want to implement those with fidelity. But I've been in this grant world too long, and I recognize what happens time and again. It's the localities, they say, look, I got a little window of opportunity to improve what I'm doing. I am not going to kill everything and then start from scratch. I'm not going to tear down all the structures and begin from the start. What I am going to do is I'm going to try to work from what I've got. I'm going to take a look at some of my existing practices and programs. I'll build from that. So it's not all science, but it's something that can help move people in the direction towards referring to evidence and trying to get a better understanding of how they can improve their efforts. So this is a quick 8-step piece on our review process. I'm not going to go through each piece of this, but essentially we bring together our evidence for a program. We do an initial evidence screening to see, you know, this is not just sort of a pre-post kind of program. We've got at least quasi-experimental or randomized controlled trials involved. We do look at time series as a form of quasi-experimental approach. We do an expert review, independent reviewers, do systematic ratings of the programs that come back together, and we do our study classifications if it meets our evidence standards. Our 4 dimensions, we rate within each of these dimensions, we have multiple criteria that we look at. They're all outlined on the website under About Crime Solutions. And the review process, we talk about what is does this program have a strong conceptual framework and a clearly articulated conceptual framework? Dropping down to the bottom, we also look at, was the program implemented with fidelity? And then back to the questions of research design and the quality of the outcome evidence. Here are some of the specific criteria under each of those dimensions. Just mention this last one, reviewer confidence. Basically, after going through this quantitative type of review of each of the criteria and the characteristics of the study and the evidence, we give the reviewers an out. That is, if for some reason these numbers don't add up to what you think is appropriate for the rating of this program, you can essentially, you know, you can say, I don't have confidence in this rating. You can essentially abort the review and say this has a fatal flaw of some kind that we didn't necessarily capture in the regular review. It doesn't happen much, but it has happened a couple of times. So this is something, again, you don't see much discussion of, but we're interested in usage. We're interested in people actually looking at this information. So this is a line graph since our launch of visits in the purple and visitors in the red. The timeline here is on first half and second half of the month, which isn't the most precise way to do it, but it shows you since the launch of the website, we had a fairly high level of interest when we launched. The Attorney General spoke about it. People picked up on it. It dropped down after that. We did some marketing efforts. And then here in the last few months of 2012, we tied the website in more closely to the National Criminal Justice Reference Service website, NCJRS, that you may be familiar with. It gets a lot of hits. And so that really picked up our hits. And then you'll see around the holidays at the end of December, usage kind of dies down. What we've seen from our most recent numbers is that they pick up in January again. Similar, average visits per day has gone up, and similar, visitors who visited more than once has gone up. And I should mention that about 20% of the visitors to Crime Solutions are international. I don't know how folks are using it. I think that we've had people contact us and reach out to us and ask us information about it. One of our top 5 cities accessing the website is Beijing, for whatever that's worth. So Mark mentioned that we're launching a meta-analysis module in March. And we're working very closely with him to develop that module. And the idea here is everything that I've shown you, everything I've talked about, is about essentially individual programs working off of one or a collection of up to 3 or 4 evaluations. But meta-analysis allows you to answer some different kinds of questions. And so we are very interested in bringing that kind of information to Crime Solutions, and we'll launch with a relatively low number, probably about 15 meta-analyses covered, but that's something we look to grow. And as we think of, again, this is an evidence-based movement, then I think we ought to recognize that we are going to see more evaluation. I don't know the funding and how it's all going to work, but we are going to see more evaluation. We are going to see more meta-analysis. And as we move forward, we're going to be able to there will be a tipping point at some point distant in the future where we're going to rely more perhaps on meta-analysis findings than individual program evaluations. And then I really want to make an important point for us, at least internally. This was a high-level priority in our organization to launch crimesolutions.gov. I really should mention Lori Robinson, who is now at George Mason University, but at the time was our Assistant Attorney General. She really brought it to our organization as a top priority to bring crimesolutions.gov to life. So we've been running this out of the office of the Assistant Attorney General since its development. Its natural home, the place where it needs to be, is actually in the National Institute of Justice. And I should point out my colleague Tom Foyt here with the NIJ, who we will be making that transition, and we're in the course of making that transition right now. So that's an important movement for us. Thank you very much.